Thank you for joining us. We're here in the studio with Professor Sonia Rankin. She's a lecturer at UNM, Africana Studies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
It's a long time, and we've been waiting for professors and lecturers to come on the show. We are lining up a whole bunch of different, areas of studies and stuff. So you're one of the first. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're breaking the ice for us in that sense. Hopefully, we'll get a lot more.
All right, so I've got a lot on my shoulders here. I've got to do this right. So.
No, well, you're a natural at it. You're a lecturer. You're an educator. So thank you for accepting the invitation. And well, thanks to Sonny and you guys. I'm sure he works very hard at it, and I rarely ever give him the credit. But there's a lot of work that goes in the background and stuff. You're with Africana Studies.
Yes.
I thought we talk about education reform, and I think you had that in mind too. Overall education, I think from my observation, it's been evolving, if I could use that term. And when you look at the higher education versus, say, K through 12, there are things changing as far as the community college and all that. The president proposed the 2 years of community college without any cost there. How do you think, let's just take the present right now before we go to the out years.
Okay.
What do you feel would change as far as the policy that the president is implementing as far as the community college? Then we come to the regular universities there.
Well, no, that's really great. I mean, we have decided in America, across the world, that in order to change a family's trajectory, we need higher education, right? If you look at what it actually takes, what is the most systematic thing that's been instituted throughout our legal history, throughout our time period, when we have instituted education into a family's trajectory, everything changes. Their economic outcome changes, their health changes, the status of the family changes, everything changes in a family's line. And so because of that, and that all goes back to really the start of the GI Bill, just looking at education as a whole. What this will do for community colleges, what this will do, and I really applaud President Obama because he's gone out and seen the country. And if I grew up in New Jersey, my dad's from Louisiana, my mom is from Panama, she grew up in the Bronx. I've seen all kinds of parts of this country. I went to law school in the Midwest, I'm raising my kids in the Southwest. There's a lot of diverse places that are happening in the United States, and there's a lot of structures and a lot of towns that were built for a different economy.
Okay.
And so what I'm sure President Obama has seen, what his aides have seen, what we already know in a lot of our small towns across America, is that the previous structure that a person could go to high school, could come out, could work at a factory, and earn a good living for their family. I mean a good living, buy a home, have a car, use that equity from the home to support their children going to college. That structure has gone away, right? These factories have changed. The nature of manufacturing in America has changed. So what are we putting in its place? We removed the manufacturing, but we didn't reskill the populace.
Okay.
And we didn't provide new entities in those places.
What do you think the GI Bill did? Because the GI Bill actually created the middle class there, from my understanding of it.
Yeah.
I think our tax rate at 90% at one time. We brought the GI Bill in, which educated a whole different class of people, creating the middle class. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, it did create the middle class. To be more careful, it created a white middle class. It would change the trajectory of a number of white Americans' economic opportunities. Those options would be limited for many of the black servicemen and women and Native and Hispanic. But what the GI Bill would provide would be these two major markers are going to provide the education. They're going to provide what we have decided is the way to build your wealth in America, which is land ownership.
Was it fairly equated as far as the different diverse groups in diversity? Was it a fair program? Do you feel when it started on the onset? Or do you feel
it was really done in a colorblind manner, right? If you read the federal statutes related to it, it was meant to apply to all. However, because it was written in that it would be administered on local control,
so therefore it changed some of the dynamics there.
So actually what we know is that out of the GI Bill and the housing loans, about 98% of them went to white servicemen, and only 2% would go to everyone else.
Do you think that was part of the process, or was it just application? Or
it would be application at the local level, and because that foundation was put in. What are we going on? 70 years ago.
Correct.
What we then have is 2 generations that built up what I call the pressure cooker of time, right? My grandfather he worked hard, right? This is no doubt about it. He went to college, he worked home, he bought the home, he, my father inherited that land continued to build in equity. I now have that land. This is a generational wealth that was created. And it created, just like you said, the middle class.
But we hadn't gone through the civil rights movement at that point.
Had
so
not,
it was coming to a point where the nation had to decide how to go about all these applications, especially with the GI Bill. Because when you created the middle class, you're right, it did create the white middle class there. The suburbia was created and all that.
And that was great how you bring up the civil rights movement, because what that means is by the time it is applied to everyone, well, some of the population has already had a generation to build their wealth.
Correct.
So if you now get a start now, but I've already been building it, I'll never be able to catch up. I mean, the fun of exponential growth. Exponentially, I just can't catch up because you've had the pressure cooker of time to benefit. And so we deal with that today, right? Our kids look at that today. They don't have that history. They don't know the history. They just look out and say, well, why do these people live here and these people live here? They don't know about redlining. They don't know the fact that it was illegal. They don't know that even right here in Albuquerque, colleague of mine, Stefan Scott, years ago, another instructor who had been in Africana studies, looked at the covenants related to housing right here near Nob Hill. And if you read the restrictive covenants, you'll see that it said Orientals, Negroes, and Hispanics can't live in Nob Hill. That's right here in Albuquerque.
This was very recent,
very recent, yes. Right.
How do you see, as far as education reform, coming fast forward, say, in the present? With the current administration, I know President Obama is trying to do a lot. He has a lot on his plate. However, he has done a few things for education, like I mentioned, the community college there. Do you feel that he has done enough?
That's, I think, is a really good point. I think I'd like to really think about it, because what are we looking at and who gets educated? If you go into, I was just reading up on this, in the 70s, about 6% of the lower income made it through college. Now only 9%, 40 years later. What have we been doing? Well, that's markedly different for those on the other economic end.
Let me take a short break. We'll come back and start right where we left off there, okay? We'll take a short break, we'll be right back.